Oh my gosh.
OCD about.
We've got sheep.
Oh, fun. Hi, sheepies.
Wow. Sheep on literally the side of the road. They're like 6 inches from the edge.
They gotta be careful. All right, hi everybody. We're doing something a little bit different. We're on our way down to the very large array in New Mexico for a day trip. But on the way, we thought we'd rehash a little bit about 2025, some of the highlights, some of the lowlights of it, as well as talk a little bit about what 2026 is going to be like.
There's a lot of people who asked us some really good questions the last few weeks, so we thought this was an easier format to get the answers out to everyone.
First question, best campground. For me, the best campground, like kind of logistically or operationally at least, was probably Alabama. We were there for about a week on our way back from Florida to Nebraska for the holidays. And it was just a very well thought out, well engineered campground, which of course I like. Plus we were able to rent a hot tub for the entire week we were there. So that was great.
It was awesome. My favorite was West Virginia, and it was a little tricky getting into because of the roads being narrow and tight with all the trees. But once you got into this open pasture, there was only like 12 or 15 spots, and there was only 3 of us there at any given time. At one point we were the only trailer there, and they also just had a lot of mowed openings so we could walk the dogs everywhere. And it was by a tiny airport, so there was a couple planes that you could see each day, and it was just really peaceful. And cows got out a few times, so there was cows outside of our window a few times.
Okay, so if we're going to talk about the best campground, we got to talk about the worst campground. And for both of us, it was the same place, which was Salem, Virginia, at Dixie Caverns. And yes, I'm giving you the exact name so that you never have to go to Dixie Caverns in Salem, Virginia. And we loved being in Salem. I have an aunt and uncle there. We spent a lot of time with them. It was great being 15 minutes away, but the campground was just the worst. It was 30 yards away from an interstate, so we got a lot of noise, a lot of exhaust. It was in a valley, so it was very dark.
Covered in trees, so we really only got a little sunlight from like 10 to 2, and then it hurt the Starlink because of all the trees, and the trees had acorns, and so it sounded like we were under machine gun fire all the time. And then there was the ticks.
Ticks, yeah, we would come inside after walking the dogs, and we would be covered in ticks.
Not like the big obvious ones, the really itty bitty ones that look, you only know if you're sitting there watching TV and all of a sudden your freckles start moving. Those kind of ticks.
So for the best place to visit, we said West Virginia, which was gorgeous.
Mine was West Virginia. I love the mountains. I called them the fluffy mountains because they're covered in trees. We hit it we were high elevation, and we hit it when fall was starting, so it was beautiful with the leaves changing. They have a ton of great hiking, lots of beautiful waterfalls. The best blackberry ice cream we've ever had. So good. They have cool rock formations. We went to a dirt track race, which was a hoot. And gosh, what else? We got to see Matt's childhood cabin out in Pawpaw,
West Virginia.
Yeah. And see where his grandparents lived in Cumberland, but mostly the Elkins area with the, can't remember the name of the, Blackwater Falls State Park was my favorite area.
And the Green Bank Observatory, which is kind of why we're doing the VLA today, was we got to go see this giant radar array. Very cool, very neat. We'll cover that in the West Virginia video in more detail, but that's also kind of why we're doing the VLA today. For me, the best place, the place that I probably liked the most to visit was Tennessee and the Smoky Mountains. It reminded me a lot of Colorado in a lot of ways, in that there were some just great hikes, and that national park out there is supposedly the most visited national park in the nation. And it was large, and there was tons to do if you like hiking and looking at waterfalls and streams and things like that, which we do. So we had a great time with it.
Now, it's hard to narrow down our most favorite place, so I went with like the quantity of items that I really enjoyed in one area. But I will have to say that there's like shout outs to obviously the Tetons, gorgeous. Yellowstone, loved all the wildlife that you got to drive around and see, and the terraces and the geysers, like such a cool location. Avalanche Lake in Glacier was probably the most amazing hike that we've ever been on. The Black Hills are so beautiful with their fluffy black mountains as well. We loved Cuyuna. It's a biking area in Minnesota, in Crosby, Minnesota, and it's a whole mountain biking trail system, and it was so much fun. We actually went twice because we had such a good time. Kitchity Kippy in Upper Peninsula was beautiful and so unique. The Bourbon Tour in Kentucky was awesome. The Smokies are always great. Outside the Smokies, the Lost Sea, which is a cavern you get to hike down into, and then it's the largest underground lake, and you get to boat across it. I'll show you that in a video. The SpaceX launches in Florida were so cool. The Sebastian Inlet in Florida, as well as one of Matt's all-time favorite things, the Gators in Mississippi.
Yep.
We were in Alabama, but they were in Mississippi.
Yeah, we just took a quick 20-minute afternoon trip over to a gator ranch, and we got to see gators. And these gators were beautiful creatures. I loved them. All right, so if we're going to talk about the best place to visit, we got to talk about the worst place to visit.
Which, I don't know if we could necessarily say the worst, because we've not had a bad experience anywhere.
None of it's bad.
All of it's been amazing. But somewhere that we'll go back to the state for sure. But the humidity, more the environment of Florida was not best. My body did not love it.
Yeah.
And our campground was hot and very, very tight. Now it did go in between we're on the barrier island, so we got one side of the campground hit the beach and one side hit the river, which that aspect was cool, but in general, like, it just wasn't the best experience. We were there to see friends, and that was more than worth it, and we had a great time with them. And we were there because Matt had to fly to Vegas for a week, so I needed a place to stay that I felt safe, and so I wanted to be with my friends, and we had a total blast that week, but my body did not like it.
No, and we were there in November, which was, as they said, cool. We saw multiple people walking around in sweatshirts, and we were still just burning up and instantly wet when we walked outside. And being used to a very dry climate in Colorado, it wasn't fun. But, there was some very pretty areas of Florida, but I don't really see us going back unless we've got people to see there. There wasn't a lot. I mean, we went on a hike one day, and quite honestly, I was bored like 5 minutes in, because it's
pretty flat.
Yeah, flat, swampy.
We'll go to Florida again just to see more parts of it, because it's such a big state.
Cows.
But if we had to pick our least favorite experience, that state is probably it.
Yeah. And the other one I'd mention is Vernon, Texas. We were only there for a week. It was just a stop on our way back to Nebraska and Colorado for the holidays. But it was, for the same reason Salem was bad, Vernon was not a good place. Not a fun place. So now kind of more fun questions, I think. The most challenging thing about RV life?
For me, it would be the planning. they talk about decision fatigue, and I didn't know what that really meant at the beginning, but now I do. Because when you are planning where your home has to be every single night, day after day after day, it gets very exhausting. And I don't want to just find a Vernon, Texas where we're miserable. I want to at least have a good experience or have it be quiet so that we can sleep well. And so I overanalyze everything, and then I've got to try to get us somewhere at some point with decent temperature. And there's just a lot of aspects to go into all of it. So you've got this long-term planning, 6 months out, where do we think we want to go? Then a few months out, okay, start to dial in where might that look like. Then you start looking at what do we actually want to do in the area? Is that what campground would be best to do all these things in the area where, is open so that we can have good Starlink for Matt to work? And are we too far out of town and we have to drive in 30 minutes to get groceries? There's just a lot of planning. And then you have to think through at what locations can we get deliveries? How much dog food do we have left, and when do we need to get that ordered so that it can arrive at a certain location at a certain time? What about our prescriptions? What about our vitamins? Where can we get Amazon parts? If we've got parts on the Brinkley that need replaced, where can those go, and how far out do we need to order some of these things? We've had a lot of canceled Amazon orders because they didn't get to us in time and we had already left. Yikes.
This is a bumpy road that we are on right now, and we're going to be on it for a while, so you're just going to have to deal.
38 more miles, but we're halfway done.
Yeah, and we're already past the unpaved part.
Yeah, you guys get the nice smooth paved part. So mine is planning. And I will, on top of that, say it's really challenging to know what day you're on and
time zones.
What time zone you're in.
Yeah, we've been in 3 time zones so far, and here in a little bit we'll be in a 4th. And yeah, you sort of, I gotten really used to doing the additions and subtractions because of work, and sort of shifting my mindset on it because I've traveled more for work and things, but man, I'll say this, we liked the East Coast time zone the best.
Yeah.
Though. We just generally seem to work better and feel better when we were on the East Coast. Don't know why. It's not like that really, I can't say why that would change things, but it was just, we felt better.
Yeah, we kind of settled into that. And part of why the time zone's tricky for me, one, is we've crossed in and out of everything multiple times. But also, when I'm watching a truck wash that's based in Mountain Time, but my credit card is based in Central Time. At least I always knew that. But then when I can't remember what time zone I am in, and it takes, this is way more complicated than you need to know, but it takes 2 hours for our credit cards to fully go through, but then it looks like it's 3 hours because they're based in Central Time. Like, it's just really confusing to reconcile a lot of the accounting for the truck wash because of the time zone situation.
For me, some of the most challenging stuff has been the medical side of stuff. So I've been working on my hormone testosterone levels for years, and just before we left, I finally found something that was helping me. But it is a controlled substance. It is not cocaine or heroin, and it's hard to come by, and you need a doctor's prescription to get it, and it requires kind of regular checkups, and finding a doctor who will meet with us via telehealth and do all of this has been really tough. Finding a doctor anywhere that we are located at the time is almost impossible because I need an endocrinologist for some of this now, and those we're booking out 9 months in advance, and it's really hard to figure out where you're going to be 9 months in advance. So finally got some things squared away, but it's like getting prescriptions, getting them shipped. When you go to do a refill of them, and the pharmacy is suddenly like, well, last time you were in Ohio and then you were in Virginia, why are you in Florida now? Why are you bouncing around so much? And insurance doesn't seem to love it and things like that. It's not fun. Try to get your medical problems solved before you go on the road.
Wow, that's beautiful.
Yeah, this is really pretty older. Can we turn it around real quick?
Yeah.
Okay. So hopefully that's
It's over here.
coming through.
Gosh, look at this
There.
bluff up here on the right.
Some good stuff. All right, so next up, this one we had to think about a little bit, but it was interesting, the answers, I think. What was the hardest day that we had on the road in the 7 months of 2025?
Yeah, so this kind of came from my mom's friend. She's actually the one who asked what the most challenging part was. And so when I had said planning, she was surprised because she thought it would be like, well, we got a flat tire and, this happened. And I was like, oh yeah, we did get a flat tire in West Virginia and it put us 4 hours behind schedule. And you just start to realize that every day is going to bring some complication. And so you expect it and that's fine. But what it led us to start thinking about is like, what really was the hardest day? Because a lot of those things you just figure out how to handle and you move on. But the hardest part is really the emotional, like what emotional days have we had that made things so hard? For me, it wasn't so much a day as a week and then the months following, but it was after a concussion that I got in Lake Geneva, Wisconsin, when we were there spending time with Matt's family. We were ziplining, and on the very last run, it was set up differently, and you just had a way harder impact at the end, and they didn't warn you. I mean, they warned you that it was different and to move your face out of the way so that it didn't knock out your teeth, but there was no warning as to, hey, if you've had a previous concussion, maybe don't do this. So that 24 hours later, I learned that it triggered a concussion, and I have been kind of in that protocol ever since, trying to rehab my brain. And it's my second major concussion, my fourth in general. So they just take a bigger toll each time you do it. And then on top of traveling and how much my brain has to work and driving, then it's just been a longer recovery. And this is a side note of a question. People think that Matt does all the driving, but we actually do 50-50 on towing. And that was the only time I didn't drive because Matt did not allow me, and he was wise to do so, was that trip around Chicago into Indiana because I had just had that concussion. I did not drive that weekend. So it was for sure best. But in general, we drive 50-50.
So my hardest day was our first day, the day that we left, because we were, of course, getting the last little things packed up out of the house and cleaned up, getting them thrown into the trailer. We had a kind of a specific time we were trying to get out by, and we were behind schedule by hours, I think it was. And I for some reason, that's something I'm very kind of ADHD or OCD about.
We've got sheep.
Oh, fun. Hi, sheepies.
Sheep on literally the side of the road. They're like 6 inches from the edge.
They gotta be careful.
They did not seem fazed by us at all.
Nope. So we were kind of behind schedule, and that was frustrating me a lot. And then as we're finally get everything packed up and ready to leave, then the emotion hits me of this was our home for the last 15 years and we'll never see it again. So I'm just bawling like a baby during that as we're driving down the road and trying to get out of town. And as we get out of town, Colorado gave us a going away present by throwing a huge rock into our windshield and chipping it. The fuel gauge on our truck stopped working, so we didn't really know what was going on there, and it just felt like all of these things were just overloading us.
There's a huge storm over Greeley, so we're heading up north and we're seeing this very dark sky with lightning everywhere and wondering. I was pretty sure it was moving east, but you never know in Colorado, so we were trying to watch that.
We're going through the mountains of Wyoming and going down hills, which we really hadn't done before. And when you're 30,000 pounds and you're used to a 4,000 pound car or vehicle, it's a big shift and a big change. So we were scared about that. And then we just had an overnight in Wyoming at a little harvest host. So it was just a lot that was going on, a lot of emotional roller coasters, like trying to be excited and happy for the new trip that we were on, but also being very sad at the home that we were leaving behind. So that was my hardest day. And really, I think since then, I can't really say there's been a hard day since that. Maybe West Virginia with the flat tire for kind of similar reasons. It just threw us off schedule a lot, and that drives me nuts. But it's been great since then.
Yeah.
All right. Now, one that is near and dear to our hearts, which is the worst roads.
Which we may reconsider after this trip right now, but we are taking a back road to get to a very out in middle of nowhere place. So it's kind of on us, and I wouldn't necessarily hold it against New Mexico.
No.
Though it does look they might be doing some construction, which is much needed.
Yeah.
Let's see, worst roads.
Yeah, so worst roads.
You got to drive outside Chicago.
Yeah, outside of Chicago, there was a bunch of construction going on, and we tried to skirt the outside as much as we could, but it was a rough ride. Definitely shook a lot loose in the trailer, and we had to do some repairs afterwards, but that was a really rough one. I-20 through Shreveport, Louisiana.
Yeah. We'd been told to not take I-20 through Louisiana because it would break our trailer, so we didn't, but we had to take just a smidge or do loop around Shreveport and then head west on 20, and so we got a little taste of it, and I see why they said that, because it was a very patchy, rough road.
Yeah. And as a weird side note, we saw a lot of cars off to the side of the road through all of Louisiana.
They just pull over and hang out on the shoulder.
Yeah.
All types too, like semis and little sedans and a minivan, and we could never figure out what the situation was.
Maybe they were just waiting for the roads to be repaired. And then, of course, all of Colorado, which is why I say this is kind of near and dear to us. We joke a lot about how bad Colorado roads are and how Nebraska roads are just built a lot better. But what we found is that actually most people build roads really well, and it seems like Colorado and Louisiana are the only ones who can't get their crap together.
Yeah.
Really weird.
And we thought it was maybe just the weather, but when you've been through Wyoming and Montana and Dakotas and Minnesota and Michigan, really cold and then really warm places, it negates that excuse.
Yeah. All right, so most surprising thing that we've learned so far on this?
Mine was...
How flexible I am.
Yeah. So I would say that I have been surprised by how flexible I am. I'm pretty type A personality. I like my lists. A lot of that has to do with my very first concussion and needing some organization. But I have learned to, not even learned, I think it's just revealed that I'm actually a way more flexible person than I realized. And that I'm okay with a lot of stuff, and you just figure it out. Now, I wouldn't say that I've always been this way, and it really revealed who I was. I think a lot of it had to do with our marriage counselor and how he, the main thing I learned from Welch that I reference all the time is that there's always more doors. There's always more options to a situation. So it's usually not an either or. It's not an A or B door. And he would always challenge us to find the C door and the D door, and there's a whole alphabet. So he's like, get creative and find your other options. And that has been very valuable because you often have to get very creative in this lifestyle on how you're going to approach something or how you're going to deal with it for that next hour, and so that you can deal with it in the longer term. There's a lot of workarounds all the time, and so he helps me find kind of the fun in that of what are our other options. Let's push the envelope and see how creative we can get.
Yeah, and for me, the most surprising thing, I think, is how much I've been okay being on the road. When we first started talking about this idea of leaving our home, selling it, and just RVing full time, I had a full mental breakdown. I was shutting down at this idea while her and her dad were just brainstorming all the fun things we could do. I was sitting there thinking about all the things that I wasn't going to be able able to do and all the things that I would lose by doing this. And it hasn't been like that at all. This has been absolutely fantastic. There have been maybe 2 times in which I got a little tired or a little frustrated with being on the road and not just having a home to go to. But I'm talking like a 5-minute blip out of the last 7 months. So that surprised me, because I am a person who typically gets very homesick when I travel. But now we take our home everywhere we go, and we take our dogs with us everywhere we go, and it makes everything so much better. And this has been such an exciting and fun trip, and I've just loved it. And that surprised me. I thought I'd really have to sort of mentally fake it till I made it, and that hasn't been really the situation at all. All right, so that was a little bit of 2025 and some of the highlights. 2026. What are we most looking forward to in 2026? I think for me, it's mostly being able to find, I guess, peace or happiness with just us traveling, because a lot of 2025 was going from place to place to place where we had friends and we had like sort of that focus on doing stuff with them, spending time with them, maximizing that time with them as much as we could. And because of that, there was a lot of stuff with either the trailer or personal stuff or projects or improvements or whatever that didn't get a lot of focus. And I think I'm going to look forward to that in 2026, being able to just sort of focus on us and the trailer and me and things like that.
Yeah, it'll be a lot less chaotic and busy, and hopefully we can just settle into a slower paced traveling schedule and appreciate what we have around us and what we're seeing, and dive more into like journaling and reading and things like that. So
better exercise routines.
Yeah, just better habits.
Yep. Learning too about doing more RV repair. One of the things that will happen this year is that the warranty on our RV will be up. So there's less of a need to have an RV tech or a dealership do fixes. So for example, our water pump needs to be replaced, and I'm going to do that this time. So learning a little bit more about RV repair I think would be fun, and it could be a new career for me in the future rather than software engineering. So we'll see about that.
Yeah. Otherwise, we're excited to see is kind of everything. Matt's been to Seattle and San Francisco for a few work trips, and we went to San Diego in 2009. But in general, we've never been on the West Coast. West of the Rockies is what we're calling West Coast. And we did do Salt Lake City one time for a convention. So I'm excited for all of it because I've never been anywhere, and I'm excited to see all of it, and excited to see the beach to the mountains in California, and I've heard the beaches in Oregon are just the most amazing place ever, and to see all different mountains, Rainier, and do the hiking, and then get over into Idaho, and there's a really cool bike trail that I'm excited to do. And do more of Montana and see all of Utah and the national parks, and be down south here in New Mexico and Arizona. Like, there's just nothing I'm not looking forward to. I think it's going to be really exciting, and I'm glad that we get to do 2 loops of it this year. So we'll do some sort of loop. It's not planned out yet. And then we will be back in Colorado for June. That is already planned, and then pop home for the 4th of July before we head back out and do the West Coast again. So we'll get to hit some places twice or different locations based on the weather, but all of it I'm really excited about it.
Yep. So thanks for watching. If you've got any questions about either 2025 and our experiences there, or if you've got questions about what we're doing in 2026, just leave a comment on this video, And always a like is helpful, and subscribing means that you will know when we publish new videos, which we will hopefully be doing more of here in 2026. So,
and we haven't left out 25. They're just slowly coming along.
yeah.
So Ohio was in August, and then everything else will still be coming out.
Yeah, still working on those videos, so pay attention or keep an eye open for those. And I will, goal for 2026 for me is to turn those videos out a lot sooner and quicker. And we've been talking a lot about how to accomplish that. So we'll see.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks.